Facing criticism as a highly sensitive artist. Have you ever been told that you are too sensitive? Or maybe you find yourself easily overstimulated by loud noises, harsh lighting, or too much screen time? If so, you might be a highly sensitive person, HSP. Hi, my name is Carrie. Here on Artists Strong, I help self-taught artists with home studios who feel stuck with their art move from wondering what's next to confidently expressing themselves through unique original art. To date, thousands have joined the community. If you feel like gaps in your learning hold you back from making your best art, sign up and watch my workshop, How to Create Art from Your Imagination. It's completely free and a great way to get a taste of my teaching to see if I might be the coach for you. The link is in the description below. As someone who identifies as HSP, I want to talk about something that can be uniquely challenging for artists like us: handling feedback. Criticism is essential for growth, but for highly sensitive artists, this process comes with its own set of hurdles. Let's talk about what it means to be HSP, how to use those unique strengths to our advantage, and make space for the feedback process so we can continue to grow, learn, and excel. What it means to be highly sensitive. The term highly sensitive person was coined by psychologist Elaine Aron. HSPs often feel deeply, can be easily overwhelmed by their surroundings, and are sometimes misunderstood as too emotional or fragile. But being an HSP is not a weakness, it's a strength. Our sensitivity allows us to notice details others may miss and to connect more deeply with our emotions and our work. Many of the people I serve identify with this label, and I find it so important to remind them and myself that being highly sensitive can empower us as artists. I recommend watching or listening to my conversation with expert Patricia Young here, who talks about how to embrace our sensitivity as a strength. I'll be sure to also link that video below. But let's be real, being an HSP does come with challenges, especially when it comes to receiving feedback. Highly sensitive artists often have a heightened awareness of their surroundings, which makes their work deeply introspective and rich with detail. However, the sensitivity can also make them more vulnerable to overstimulation, leading to emotional overwhelm when receiving feedback. So many creatives I know have had a bad enough experience with the critique process or people pretending to offer feedback that they stop asking for help. This can become a huge hurdle that stagnates our growth, not to mention feeds the monster that is our inner critic. Those circumstances and behaviors can leave us ripe for creative block. Today, I want to focus on how we can make the feedback process work for us as highly sensitive artists, and honestly, for anyone who struggles with criticism. Where and how to ask for feedback. The first key to making a feedback a positive experience is knowing who, where, and how to ask for it. Consent is crucial in this process. Feedback should never feel like an ambush. And don't worry, we will talk about that unsolicited feedback in a minute too. Here's what to keep in mind when seeking helpful critique. Know your goals. Before asking for feedback, get clear on your intentions. Are you looking for technical advice? Do you want thoughts on composition? Or maybe you're looking for emotional impact. Be specific about what you're asking. Time and time again, I've been in environments where someone says, feedback is welcomed. But in fact, that phrase has become a red flag for me. It's often someone who wants or needs affirmation, but who doesn't feel permission to ask for it directly. Every single time I've offered feedback in this situation, it's been met with defensiveness. Now, I know to keep asking questions about the artist's goals so I can make sure I'm being in service of the work and the artist is actually interested in my feedback. Remember that giving feedback can also feel scary. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, and it can feel really ambiguous and open-ended when people ask for general feedback. It's way easier for me to offer support when someone asks a specific question about composition, their use of value, or how close they are to capturing likeness in their photo reference. Share the big picture. It's important for the person giving feedback to understand your overall artistic vision. Are you working towards a particular style? Is this piece part of a larger body of work? When I share that one piece we're looking at is part of a larger series with a specific agenda, that really helps the people offering me support and have perspective on the work. For example, I used a limited color palette and incorporated patterns in my Anonymous Woman series that reflected the colors and patterns in fabrics and wallpapers from the 1940s, the era in which my women were living. Feedback or critique that suggested I change my patterns to be more modern or adjust my colors wouldn't really be in service of the project unless they found inaccuracies in my work. On the other hand, feedback about my balance of color or placement and scale of the patterns was definitely helpful in creating those works. Ask people you trust. Seek feedback from peers or mentors who respect your vision and are either on the same level of you or ahead of you in skill. When I think about being an artist, I feel like it's a lifetime of training my eyes to see and look at the world differently than an average person going about their day. It doesn't matter that I'm 2 decades into taking my art seriously. That's not something I'll ever complete. It's not a task I'll tick off and say, okay, that's sorted. I see the world with artist eyes, time to move on. Our brain is actively designed to sift through the insane amounts of information it receives and to filter out and disregard information that it deems unimportant. We must train our brain to look for detail, to seek out nuance, to see like an artist. Having other people's eyes on my work has been the fastest way for me to start seeing both the strengths and the weaknesses of my art. When I started toying with my Anonymous Woman series, I started with timed sketches of small pieces of Bristol board. That was when I started to have pictures in my mind of these larger painted and gilded portraits. While I liked the drawings, I saw them as an exercise and part of my idea development until a good artist friend said, "Carrie, you need to do this project, and those drawings should absolutely be part of the exhibition." I had zero plans to sell or share those drawings until my friend suggested it, and I sold most of them too. I had filed them away in my head under a category of exploration and thus didn't see the possibilities or beauty in them until a peer pointed it out. How much work are you hiding away that deserves to see the light of day? You don't have to do it alone either. This is the kind of thing I do inside Self-Taught to Self-Confident, where I guide people through filling in any gaps in their skill so they confidently express themselves through unique, original art. We have regular opportunities for feedback from peers and myself, including our weekly check-in where people get feedback on their mindset, process, and art. If that sounds exciting to you, you can learn more when you sign up for my workshop called How to Create Art from Your Imagination for free. You'll enjoy a taste of my teaching, learn more about the program, and get a special 7-day enrollment offer when you sign up. Use the link here or in the comments below. Another thing, the people you ask for feedback from should want to see you succeed, not manipulate or diminish your work for their own agenda. Unfortunately, sometimes even well-meaning peers and teachers can say the wrong thing. And even worse, there are people in the art world who try to control the narrative around what should be considered art. This can lead to harmful black and white thinking about how art must look. But genuine feedback is meant to serve the art, not someone else's ego or power play. I talk more about this in a video on boundaries and the feedback process, which I'll link here and below. So let's talk about unsolicited feedback. Dealing with unsolicited criticism. Another challenge we face as HSPs is that feedback isn't always invited or constructive. Sometimes people offer unsolicited opinions and it's rarely helpful. For example, when someone angrily comments on my YouTube channel, calling me a scam because I sell art or courses, that's not feedback. On the other hand, when someone from my community, like a subscriber on my email list, writes to me with thoughtful suggestions on how to improve Artist Strong, I'm going to listen. Why? Because they come from a place of respect and care, and their feedback is aligned with my goals. As HSPs, we often struggle with perfectionism, so it's important to carefully choose who we listen to. Those who offer feedback without consent are not offering true feedback. Instead, they're often projecting their own issues onto us. In moments like these, I've learned to have a plan in place. When someone offers unsolicited advice, I respond with a simple thanks and quickly change the subject. If they persist, I add, I'm not looking for feedback right now, but thanks. If they still won't respect my boundaries, it's time to step away. Think about it. If someone chooses to ignore your specific requests to stop giving feedback, how much is the feedback actually about you? Coping with feedback, the emotional side. The hard part for us HSPs is navigating two types of interactions. One, the unsolicited criticism that poses as feedback, and two, actual critique that we've asked for. For the first kind, I allow myself time to process my emotions. That might mean taking an afternoon to decompress, whether by journaling, going for a walk, baking a personal favorite, or messaging a friend. These activities help me feel acknowledged and physically release some of the overstimulation. Afterward, I usually feel more calm and centered. Having a go-to phrase or strategy can be really helpful when those unpredictable moments happen. For example, I often freeze when someone gives me unexpected feedback, so having a prepared script allows me to feel more in control and less overwhelmed. What strategy can you put into place that might help you with these hard moments? Share your scripts and challenges in the comments below. Receiving feedback, what works for me? Now, let's talk about how to handle feedback when we've actually asked for it. First, I always assume I'm going to feel defensive, and that's okay. I may not be able to process everything in the moment, but here's what I do to stay grounded. 1, I take notes. Writing things down helps me focus on the feedback itself instead of getting lost in my head. It also gives me something to review later when I'm in a calmer state. 2, ask clarifying questions. Instead of arguing or getting defensive, I ask for more details. For example, can you explain why you think changing this aspect of the piece would make such a big difference? 3, document everything. This helps me reflect later when I'm ready to decide what feedback will actually help me grow. Once I've had time to step away and decompress, I return to my notes with one question in mind. What feedback will help me create better art? Or write stronger grant applications. That's when I'm ready to turn feedback into action. I am interested in public art display of my work, which means I apply to exhibit in public and nonprofit spaces. I also apply for grants and artist residencies, and it's been through this process I've developed my own approach for managing the feedback process. One of the first residencies I applied to when I lived in Canada came back as a rejection. I was really disappointed, but they said you could reply and ask for feedback on your work and proposal. I was terrified. What if they told me I should never paint again? What if I'm not good enough? My amazing partner convinced me to reply and ask for the feedback. He reminded me it would help me write a better application the next time. I took a deep breath and I pressed that send button. A few weeks later, an email came in. The first sentence was, technically, your application was very strong. Come to find out, a few tweaks and reframing, and they felt I could be a good fit in the future. And all that time, I was thinking things like, you aren't good enough. Since that first time asking for feedback, I sign up for every feedback session I can get my hands on. This year, I've had 2 calls where people gave me 30 minutes to talk about my work. I have learned so much and feel even more confidence in my work despite being rejected in all those scenarios. That's what true feedback can do. Pave the way for you to share the passionate, emotion-filled artist you are with others and feel even greater permission to be who you are and create the work you feel called to create. Making feedback work for you. My process may not work for you, and that's okay. The goal here is to find strategies that help you get the most out of feedback while protecting your energy as a highly sensitive person. If growing and improving as an artist is important to you, regular feedback is essential, but as HSPs, we have to be mindful of how and when we engage with it. Since I've developed my system, I wouldn't say I've grown thicker skin. We HSPs aren't really known for that. But I do know this, my value and vision for my work are greater than the discomfort I feel in the moments of receiving critique. And that's what keeps me pushing forward. Here are some questions for you to reflect on to help you start developing a strategy for handling feedback. What are your common triggers when receiving feedback? How can you prepare yourself for those moments? What will help you cope when those triggers arise? What questions can you prepare in advance to help with the feedback process? What phrases can you use when you feel overwhelmed and need to redirect or pause the process? If you enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe to Artist Strong. Content ideas come directly from your comments, emails, and calls with me, so be sure to share your struggles and successes here on Artist Strong so we can make more art together. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, proudly call yourself an artist. Together, we are Artist Strong.